I know this isn't in line with the usual content I make, but would you rather I made a top 10 on some waifus that you will never be with as you are reminded how lonely you are today of all days? Probably, since I'm sure that would get way more dislikes, which is essentially more views for me. But Persona 5, the best JRPG of 2017, right?
Lies, nothing but lies.
And while this game isn't exactly that hotness right now, there is more Persona 5 on the horizon, with Persona 5R being announced in just a month, Joker being in Smash Bros. Who knows how long before the inevitable Persona 5 fighting game? Why not start talking about this game now, because this game is truly something special. As a fan of Personas 3 and 4, I can see why this game is beloved by so many, and that is in part to the palaces and the confidants of today. This video will discuss the prior. So, let's get into the obligatory ranking explanation. Honestly, it's just opinion. There's no science as to why I like one palace more than the other, but I can say that better development that happens for the world, party members, and palace holder will make me, and I'm sure many of you, appreciate it more. Puzzles will be judged on how much they piss me off rather than on how good they are, because let's face it, these aren't anything revolutionary. If the puzzle didn't aggravate me, it gets a pass. Finally, this should be obvious, but spoilers? And I will spoil parts of the game at any time in the video, so don't even risk watching this if you haven't beat the game yet. So, with all of that out of the way, let's go into the metaverse and start breaking down some palaces. Starting from the bottom, we have what is widely considered the worst palace in the game. The Spaceport of Greed, Palace of Kunikazu Okumura, is the nadir of P5, which is only exacerbated by the awful lead up to the infiltration. Since Futaba joined your party, Morgana feels useless for some reason. Not like he was ever that helpful after Kamoshida's palace. I mean, he's the weakest party member by far, as the resident heel bitch, but the game never directly addresses that, and the writing of this part was clearly not taking a meta twist to address it. To compensate for his ego, Morgana acts more pompous than usual, and when resident idiot Ryuji, someone with whom Morgana has bickered with throughout the whole game because, let's face it, no one is a bigger dick to you than your closest friends.
He shouldn't die. Yes, fuck you.
He should know to take Ryuji's comments on the chin, right? No, instead, Morgana decides to leave the Phantom Thieves and infiltrate Okumura's palace on his own because that worked out so well last time. Morgana, of course, gets his ass kicked, but is saved by Haru, which makes no sense for two reasons. First, why did Haru follow a random cat into the metaverse when that doesn't align with her personality? And second, we learned that Haru only half awakened her persona, meaning it can't even fight yet. So I ask, how did they get out? The robots still attack Haru despite her lineage, so Morgana now has a liability to protect. It's clearly an excuse to get Noir in costume sooner, since none of these questions are ever addressed again. Thankfully, this whole mess of a plotline lasts less than a week in game, and once it's done, the infiltration begins, but oh goodness, do I wish that Yaldabaoth's awful sequence was the end of the misery. Okumura's palace has 3 parts to it, and all of them just suck. First, you have to find the chief director to get access to the next area, but doing so requires you working your way up the chain of command by gathering intel. This isn't worth it because it's less effort to kill all of them since the EXP they give is actually not half bad. What makes this part suck is how the floor isn't fully loaded, meaning when you want to go back to another area to see if that's where the target is, all the enemies you killed respawn and make you either waste your SP in killing them, or waste your time by trying to dodge fights. Once you finally reach the next area, the game says, "We're almost done, guys." You're not even halfway. And this isn't the last time the game gives you false hope. Thankfully, this segment isn't that bad mechanically, but the game's attempts to make Okumura more despicable corporate filth by showing how little he cares for his employees are just laughable to me because, you know, selling his daughter to an arrogant prick for political gain isn't enough reason to hate the guy. After killing 15 robots as a mid-boss because yes, I counted, the party sees that Okumura's success is built off the lives of his workers and tries to make this a sad moment. Does Atlas think the player has never seen someone in the service industry before? At least we're at the final third and these puzzles. Holy shit, Atlas. Why? These vent puzzles are the worst thing I've played in any RPG. No exaggeration. I spent 30 minutes on that final puzzle, and I still had to look up a guide on how to finish it. Okay, now with that nightmare out of the way, time for Okumura to face my full rage and what the fuck is this? Yeah, the boss fight with Okumura doesn't actually have you fight Okumura. Okay, you do get to shoot him in the end, and yes, I made sure to shoot him to death. But first, I had to waste 10 minutes on the same mooks I killed yesterday, and sweet fuck, will you shut up? Whoever decided to put that annoying filter on Okumura that makes him unintelligible in cutscenes and ear-grating when you do understand him, screw you! Now, where was I? Oh right, back to killing generic robot number 25! Yes, I counted! As he wastes another 10 minutes before getting to beat Okumura. Everything about this palace was dreadful. The boss sucked. The puzzles sucked. The build-up sucked. Haru's introduction to the Phantom Thieves sucked. The music can do no wrong because it's Persona, but this is easily the weakest track from any palace. Thankfully, the other ones are leagues better. You know, even though we stopped Okumura, I still want to blow this place up. Persona final areas are usually more pain than pleasure, so having the final area in P5 be a true palace was a welcome change. I could go on about how Atlas took Tartarus and made it 10 times worse, but this segment is only on the depths. For starters, some of the encounters here are nasty, especially Dick Chariot over here. As for the build up to this palace, there isn't really one. You just kill God because Persona. Character development is light as the focus is on Morgana, and I'm sorry, but I don't like what they did. The Velvet Room was the sacred constant that every game has, like the Pokemon Center. What if Nurse Joy was the true villain all along? I'd be like, no, get back behind the counter and heal my Mons. However, I will say I love how they foreshadowed the twist as it was right in front of us, but the positives are instantly erased with the 15 minutes I spent getting each party member to jerk off my ego some more. The music was miles better than the Mementos main theme, and honestly, I find it very relaxing to listen to as it has that hypnotic tone that is thematically perfect for this palace. The main melody is even the same as the humming in Tokyo Daylight, which is a nice touch. Now, I want to ask, who thought that putting that filler at the 99.9% mark was a good idea? Because that's all the fight with the 4 archangels were. Symbolism? I could summon these goons like nothing. Trumpeter, blow them away! I think the final palace was a good area, but it was just that. Good. As for the final boss, it's alright. If this was your first Persona, I understand why you would hold it in such high regard, but Persona 3's final boss for me is perfection. It is my favorite final boss, even more so than the final boss of my favorite game. All in all, I think that the final palace in Persona 5 is a good ending to a fantastic game, and I will see that it's easily the best final area of any Persona, but the other palaces are just much better in my opinion. Hey, Atlas, last I checked, vanity wasn't a deadly sin. Now, comment that is going to tell me that it was vainglory or vanity before the Catholic Church merged with pride. I know. Why am I going on about this? Because I don't know how else to start this segment. The Museum of Vanity, the palace of Ichiryusai Madarame, is the second palace in the game, and like the last entry, I don't have as much to say here. With this being the second palace in the game, Atlas had a tough act to follow considering how well they handled Kamoshida, and it shows. The whole reason you even target Madarame is because the stars aligned properly with Yusuke, and the comments made by the shadow of the first person you change in Mementos. The build-up just isn't as powerful this time, especially since Yusuke has doubts about his actions, as Madarame is the most morally gray palace owner. So to alleviate your doubts, Atlas decided to throw in that Madarame let Yusuke's mom die in front of him from a seizure. Yusuke's inner turmoil in processing this is handled well and challenges if the Phantom Thieves are just, but that's explored in his confidant, and the surface is only scratched in the palace, which is a roundabout way of saying the character development is lacking in this palace. As for the actual dungeon, it is merciful as it naturally splits itself into 2 days, and nothing stands out as particularly egregious except for that whole Madarame's toes part. I was with that guard thinking, hey, leave your fetishes at home, buddy. This is a professional work environment, okay? Serious shiz happen here. Capiche? The music is solid, but it doesn't have the same kick that a lot of the other tracks have, and has definitely been underappreciated, but I listened to this track when studying because of how calming it is. The boss wasn't anything special and was the easiest one for me. Thanks, Rampaging Ryuji. I wasn't sure what would happen in the second palace, but this certainly met my expectations, while the last entry didn't quite reach them. Hence, Madarame's palace takes the number 6 spot. From here on out, the top 5 palaces in the game for me all did something stellar, which brings us to the Palace of Junya Kaneshiro, the Bank of Gluttony. This palace is where the game starts picking up the pace and gave me the Persona 5 I was hearing about online. Palace 1 I did in one day and you heard my thoughts on Palace 2, but Palace 3? I'll let the music talk for me. That part of the song, that 10-second bit, fueled my rebellious spirit to keep playing this game for the 8 hours a day before the frigid days before Navidad, as we say in my second tongue. I wasn't going to drop this game at any point, but I felt rejuvenated. The build up this time has been foreshadowed for quite some time as we see Makoto doing this. Horseplay. And seeing her inner strife for weeks about how she has to follow the rules and wants to break free. Viewer, that is the whole point of this game. It's why Makoto is the poster girl, the canon ship, and that awakening. Is that Persona a fucking motorcycle? Listen, I have no shame in saying I was lured by the priestess's wiles, but I only ask, why is she not the Empress? Because, yes, Queen Slay, Queen Slay! Yes, I think Makoto has the second best awakening in the game, we'll get to number 1, and I will say she is my favorite party member since she is fast, tanky, has nuclear magic, good physical damage, defensive buffs, and is a solid healer? What more do you need? This is why she is queen! The palace also helps Makoto since the bank was definitely my highlight of the game up to this point, as I really like the pin puzzles that required thinking and not toes. The boss fight was also great as it was the first 2-phase battle, and I was shocked it came this early, but it was some nice variete to the typical formula thus far. Good character development for Makoto, great build up, best awakening thus far, good dungeon design that isn't overly long for once, and a banger of a track. People, you have yourself an amazing palace on your hand, and yet, we're just at the halfway point. Some people don't like this palace, but the Palace of Masayoshi Shido, the Cruiser of Pride, is overhated. That's right, I'll say it with my chest.
I like Queen.
Beelzebub has a devil put aside for me.
That, but also this palace ain't too bad. Take it in, viewer. This is it. This is what the game has been not so subtly building towards. The
Damn brat! I'll sue!
and the.
It'll be easy to find out who if we look into this, you know.
But most importantly, the
This is how your justice ends.
was for this. The main antagonist behind not just the Phantom Thieves, but also you, the player suffering as Joker. The whole 80-something hours thus far was caused by this guy, and you finally get to change his bleeding heart. When you first enter the Diet building, and I'll never know why the localization team screwed that up but kept honorifics in the game, you are greeted with
What does it mean to be a politician with responsibility? Working toward personal gain without consideration of the country is outrageous.
This is the true way to listen to this track, as it captures the essence of this palace. You've heard Shido's lies and deceit throughout the whole game, so when you hear it in the palace, it drives you even more to complete it. It also works with the theme with the recommendations. I love this idea as the game finally gives me a way to track my progress, because once you get the letters, go through the rap puzzles, which I don't get why people hate them. I'll gladly take anything that encourages avoiding combat this late into a Persona. That's it. But not before.
I'll show you who I really am. Come, Loki!
An ant has no quarrel with a boot.
I could do a whole video on pancakes over here, but I'll just give you the spark notes. This is a fantastic boss battle, and I love how Akechi's AI targeted Joker. Bonus points to the game for acknowledging that in a 1v1 on Final Destination, Akechi wins 6 out of 7 matchups, but does he deserve redemption? Not even remotely. However, he was a better boss than Shido in my eyes, and I'm sorry, but I was expecting more than Senator Armstrong from Persona. Also, a hot take, but I don't think Rivers in the Desert fits with this fight. Fantastic song that Sakurai please put into Smash Brothers, but for Shido, sorry, not a fan. However, the resolution of seeing Shido have his heart change and start bawling like a little baby, so immensely satisfying. This fucker, this horny, self-absorbed, loathsome, irredeemable piece of toxic filth is the best villain in this game. Move over, calculating politician and shape god. Suguru Kamoshida, owner of the Castle of Lust, has the best opening level in any Persona, but also has one of the greatest opening acts in any game I have played. People, at first I hated this palace because I made the dumbass decision of beating it in one day because I've played Personas 3 and 4, and one day dungeons were a requirement for a 100% complete, maxed out social link run. So how was I supposed to know that Persona 5 was more lenient, as you can easily max out all the social links and have several extra weeks left? I didn't know that when I was following a guide, which I've done for Persona 4 after failing to see everything in Persona 3. It's why the bank was my favorite at that point. I'm not being inconsistent, I'm just looking past my mistakes and seeing this dungeon for what it is, which is magnificent, like that painting with Kamoshida's pecs. As for the build-up, come on. Learning how abusive Kamoshida was towards the volleyball teams, seeing the physical abuse literally on the faces of the characters, hearing the emotional abuse through the whisperings of the school, and having all of it culminate in Shiho's leap of faith, we'll call it so I don't get demonetized. This was a raw moment that made you feel Ryuji's rage, and scorn, and the desire to change this effed up world, as Skull would say. The palace itself? Tutorial heavy, but it's better than Persona 4's absence of a tutorial, and once you actually get to infiltrate the palace, it becomes more of a test. Did you know to use gun to shoot the pixie in the pelvis? Because if you did it good! The funky music, the aesthetic, the awakenings, seeing how warped and despicable a palace owner can be, all of it is this brilliantly crafted introduction that eases the player into this world that is unfamiliar, not just to newcomers, but to veterans as well, as this is a shakeup for the established formula. And that boss battle.
You never see it coming. You see that my mind is the best for us.
How can you top something this expertly coded? Well, Atlus found a way, and they did it twice. The fourth palace in the game, belonging to Futaba Sakura, the Pyramid of Wrath, is Atlus's answer to the question, what if we put a Persona 4 dungeon in this game? In Persona 4, the dungeons focus on the party members or people close to the party instead of the villains, giving Persona 4's cast much more depth. Futaba undergoes similar development as she faces her shadow that, like in Persona 4, forces her to confront the truth she didn't want to believe. Futaba was traumatized from her mother's death, and she was hiding from the pain by becoming a hikikomori. It's because you see Futaba's development happen in the story, and not just in her confidant, that makes her the game's most developed character. I'm sorry, Makoto, you held the title of best girl for a whole one palace, but Futaba's moments during this time make me love her that much, and her confidant is the only one among the female party members that didn't make me want to pull out my evoker. And the music in this palace. It somehow captures Futaba's melancholy while also having this funky vibe that perfectly represents Futaba at this point of the game. The palace itself wasn't anything that unique. Anubis can kiss my sandy ass with how much he shows up in this part, and that damn reverse rubbing monkey can join him. The boss fight is memorable for questionable reasons though. Seriously, was no one else weirded out when they saw this thing? This creepy ass head on a sphinx type of creature? I mean, it is unique as it's the only boss aside from the final one and Pancakes that isn't a shadow, and I was a little disappointed that more cognitions weren't major bosses after this point. So, what's the takeaway from this palace? Well, if you take Persona 4's themes, mix them with Persona 5's aesthetics, you get something truly special. But there is one more palace that stands on its own merits and shows why this game truly is a masterpiece. Every Persona game has that moment when the player puts everything together, and the time between that discovery and the in-game revelation is something that I can only describe as true euphoria. These moments are different for each player. For Persona 3, my moment was the time between the end of the final boss fight and the credits. In Persona 4, it was the time I spent trying to understand the killer's motivation. And in Persona 5, it was the time I spent in this palace. How fitting that the palaces that focus on the Nijima sisters are the ones that renewed my spirits. Now, I went into the game knowing that Akechi was the traitor, and not because someone directly spoiled me, but because Twitter, your memes aren't as funny as you think they are. However, I caught on to pancakes, and I'm glad they didn't try to keep the reveal subtle. The build-up for this palace is the largest the game has, even more so than the 7th and final palace, I'd say, and that's because the player's first moments are in this palace, and seeing the aftermath as you're tortured, abused, and ultimately interrogated raises so many questions that will finally be answered. And when that anime sequence ends and the camera pans to show the casino, that moment, this reveal, glorious. As soon as I heard the lyrics to Whims of Fate, I spent at least 15 minutes taking Skull, Queen, and Crow up and down that walkway, just strutting around, shuffling my party afterwards to make sure everyone got a little taste of the limelight. This song, I cannot tell you how much I love this song. I even bought this song on my phone, which is something I do maybe twice a year, if even that often. It may be because I love gambling, but this song makes me want to give into temptation. The palace's gambling theme also ties into the exploration and gameplay in a seamless fashion. Since the house always wins in casinos, you go behind the scenes and rig the games in your favor so that you can get the required chips needed to pass. After you reach the higher stakes floors, you go through a maze and an enemy gauntlet, which are some of the better palace trials. Overall, the lack of tedious puzzles like in the palace previous to this one amp up the overall enjoyment. And then you reach the boss. The big titty, goth girlfriend we all wanted as preteens in the 2000s. Exposing her cheat was a nice spin on the boss formula, which leads into the real battle, which I adore. Seeing Shadow Sei grow increasingly desperate as the tides turn against her, the design being what you would expect as a rusted, monstrous biker demon given Makoto's outfit, everything about this fight was awesome, but the true payoff comes after. Akechi being the traitor. Everyone figured it out by this point. But the true twist was seeing your gang of anime cliches pull off the greatest hoax I've seen in a video game. The whole time, Akechi wasn't fooling the party, but it was Atlas who played us, and I can't help but give a standing ovation for that masterful display. This moment surpasses that in any other Persona for being so well handled and executed with the utmost precision. Dear viewer, I'm the Omniblade, and I'm gonna jam out to Whims of Fate now and pray that Sakurai at least puts in an instrumental version of this song in Smash, so that I can listen to this work of art and remember my time with the Phantom Thieves. And that will sum up my thoughts on the palaces in Persona 5. I don't expect this video to do as well as my other ones, but if it does through some miracle of fate, I would be absolutely ecstatic. Even if it does as well as my Xenoblade video, which wasn't in line with the stuff I did, but still did fairly well over time, I'd be happy with that. I would be more than happy with that. I want to be able to talk more about other games I like. I wish I could talk more about Xenoblade, but it's a bit of a dead thing, and it's like in that awkward point where it's like people don't look back on it like they do with the original Xenoblade and think of it as a masterpiece. It's just kind of in that limbo phase where it's like people can still play it if they want to, and I'm not at the point where I want to do reviews on bigger stuff yet. I do have some ideas in mind. Hopefully by the time this video's gone out, I've done a review of a game I wanted to, and hopefully that went well. I don't know how a lot of this stuff I'm doing before this is gone, because I am doing the transitional phase of my channel now, and hopefully this Persona 5 stuff will mark a new era for me. And I keep saying "and" so much, I hate doing that. I always get so rambly at these outros, because they function as my updates, because no one watches straight updates. If you guys want to see more Persona stuff, I honestly would love to do top 10 social links / confidants as a video. I thought about doing them separately, but then after playing Persona 5, I was like, no, I think there is only enough good ones that I could legitimately do maybe a top 15, if not a top 5, or a top 10, if I really wanted to do that, because of how much I love Persona. and how there are a lot of good social links. I could do that. I could also rank the party members if people would be down for that. I would love to do more stuff with this series. I hopefully want to do reviews on Personas. All of the Personas one day. Even 2 and 1, I need to play them, but I don't have the money because they're so expensive. And that's not on my priority list right now. I got so many other things. But that is going to cover pretty much everything I want to talk about in this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Comment down below what your favorite palace is. I don't know, talk about your favorite stuff. Who's your favorite confidant, party members? Talk about all that stuff. Talk about anything Persona in the comments. I want to see more Persona discussion, even if the game is 2 years old roughly by this point. And thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like if you liked the video. That helps me so much more than you could ever imagine. And subscribe, hit that bell, all that nonsense they tell you to do at the end of videos that no one ever actually does. But if I say it, then maybe that one person will get it, like Mishima at the end of that credit sequence, alright? That was such a good moment. I loved. Alright, finally, I will get up out of here. Peace.